give you as much information as time allows. The other thing that you will notice that is different on that report is that for the first time we have added any amendments to the contracts that we executed. This again is in response to the board's request that we have full transparency on the contracts and on the information that we give you. It's for ease of reading, we have put those amendments in blue at the end with each of the contracts, and so it just makes it easier to read and to see what if any of those have been amended. We are also very happy to report that we have more than one person trained on the new database, and so this way we're not dependent on having only one person that can do it for you. And so it's a work in progress. We hope that you like the format. I will solicit any comments or feedback when you do have a chance to read it. Excuse me. And if you have any changes or anything you want different or present it in another way, let me know, and we will certainly accommodate the wishes of the committee. So that's the one item that I had. The other two items, three items that you had asked for a report on, Mr. Hinton, is a report on the implementation of our HELMS system. And for that, we have Darla and Dan up here ready to go and to give us a brief overview of where we are.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Carl.
Before we get started, if it's all right, I put on everybody's place from a carryover from this morning, the 3 quintile data that Ms. Pavich asked for, so you can stick that into your files when you go home tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Hinton asked for the pre- and post-HELMS for IT at the last meeting, so you should have a printed report in your packet, right?
Yes.
And I was just going to go through the highlights of that and then field any questions. So direct me at the level of detail that you want. So with the move from an in-house developed system, or actually we had 7 systems, to a purchase system, the main difference is the number of support staff. So, and in the cost analysis for the decision to purchase HELMS, we projected that we would be able to decrease the support staff by 5. So the first table on page 1 shows 3 states. It shows steady state, which is normal operations for a mature system for the mainframe. And we had 19.5 developers or support staff, that's direct support staff for that system. Currently we have approximately 10 supporting HELMS, so we have reduced staff. And when we get to full normal mature operations, I expect that that can go down as low as 7.5. So we've exceeded the number of staff. In the analysis, we projected that we would either reduce the staff or reassign them. Before we go there, let me talk about steady state a minute, though. The 2 things that are preventing us right now primarily from being at steady state are we have what the vendor calls the great big shipment. It's a large shipment of regulatory mods that we have to have in by the end of the year. And the other thing that continues to impact us is the data center consolidation. This year, in 2009, by July, we will be moving all of our systems and all of our applications to the state data center. And so testing and moving the HELMS application into that data center will take considerable resources. I've tried to identify DCS cost versus HELMS cost, but obviously there's some overlap, you know, because the 2 projects are not mutually exclusive. And actually the resources allocated may increase during the year because of that transformation rather than actually decrease. But I think that gives you a picture overall of where we're going with staffing. The next graph on page 2 shows our actual change in staffing. And related to Helms, we've actually reduced only 5 positions, 2 developer positions and 3 data entry positions. The other 4.5 were reassigned to other projects and other positions within ITS. 9 of our reductions, or 10 actually, are related to the DCS operations. So that table shows you our change from 53 positions prior to Helms in DCS, and we currently are at 36 positions. We have reassigned and reorganized, and we've created a quality assurance and a testing group and a database group. And we have had to increase salaries to hire competent staff. So in the first table, you will see that our average staff salaries have increased for both Helm support and for ITS overall. So that impacts the actual amount of money that has been recouped that's not related to Helms. In the middle of page 2 lists the projects that we've been able to support and where we've been able to expand support in other areas by utilizing the staff that would have been assigned to Helms. So I think that's been our real benefit in reducing the number of staff on Helms, is being able to assign those to other projects. The last, page 3, shows the original cost analysis at the bottom to buy Helms. And the top section is the cost analysis updated with the current reductions or the current cost, and then projections changed or updated for future years. So as the net present value there shows, we are expecting to realize more value than we originally projected. And the main variances are the Sierra settlement and then the ITS staff reductions. We've reduced more staff, but not as early as we projected. So the bottom line for me is that we've have more qualified staff and staff to work on additional projects, and we haven't had to increase the funding for ITS. Questions?
Very good. Anybody have any questions?
I have one small question. I mean, I guess the interesting item here is the average salary cost basically skyrocketed. Is it due to the complexity of the new system, Helms?
No, the positions that we reduced, 3 were data entry operators, and they were at the lower level of the spectrum. Okay. And then of the DCS staff that we reduced, 9 of those were operators, computer room operators, and again, those were your lower level staff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hinton, if I may add just one thing that Darla mentioned there, that has really made a difference, I think. For me it has, at least, as we looked at the other operations besides the loan program. As I understand, in the past, that was pretty much what the IT staff concentrated on, that and the website. And so with the shift to looking at such things as our accounting system and doing things that will help our business and support services, that has made a big difference in being able to bring you the data that is current and timely and accurate. And I, for one, appreciate the work that IT has done in that area.
Any other questions? Okay, Arturo, we move into
the next item on the report is a report on the quarterly financial status that I've asked Susan Corrine to present to us. Again, if you recall, the last time we pledged to you that we would be bringing to you a quarterly report on our finances and how we spend the money. That report is on your desk, on your table, at your places, and Susan will briefly walk you through that and answer any questions. Susan?
Okay. After I pulled the report together, I went home last night, and through the night I told Mr. Hinton earlier, I thought I needed to include a Mr. Hinton bottom line. So if you will turn to the second page.
JVH box.
The AVH box. I put just a small box there underneath the total available balance, and that really is sort of the big picture, how we're planning to end the year. This report is the end of AY 08, so it's through 8/31 of 08. And I'll give you a few minutes to maybe digest that box. But all of that information is provided in detail in the report. And then the one thing that I kind of wanted to point out too is, you know, I've hired a young man in my office. He's on vacation this week, but I think you met him this summer, Jose Rios. And he has done just such a really good job of working with the divisions, as well as certainly with my staff, but working with the divisions on helping them monitor their budgets. We're also moving out with several different technology solutions to assisting the divisions with, you know, having access to their accounting data on a regular basis so they can monitor their budgets. It's all been well received. Our assistant commissioners are committed, and I've been very pleased with some of the results of how we're getting this information and been able to share it with them.
Susan, on the right-hand side, pending the end-of-year adjustments, before you get down to the box,
Yes,
bottom
sir.
line, you have a notation here about carry forward to 09, $269,339. Is that right? And return to loan funds, $139,000.
Yes, sir.
Where did that money come from without us having to go through here and figure it out?
On the, I'm sorry?
I'm saying, where does that money come from without us having to go back through all these
Okay.
numbers to figure it out?
And if I'm understanding the box you're looking at the H goal there, the indirect administration.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The each year, you know, when we do the budget, we have certain funding that we get from general revenue, and then the makeup of the rest of that method of financing for to cover our budget is through the loan funds. And so our goal throughout the year is to use our general revenue first, and then if there's any loan funds that are still remaining at the end of the year, we would return those to loan funds. So that's what that one column is. The carry forward for the 09, we anticipated as we were looking at our 08 budget that we were going to have that amount of money remaining in our IR strategy. And so it made sense to us to go ahead and keep it there, carry it forward to 09, and assist with a portion of the funding for the IR strategy for 09.
Is there a restriction on how that money can be used as you carry it forward?
Yes, it is, and it's by the appropriation. So within this happens to be in our capital. I can verify that, but I think this portion was in our capital for our purchases, and that's what we'll move forward for that. But I can verify that for sure. The other items that you see carry forward, typically the rider language, and we do follow the rider language on these, says as appropriated, you know, from above or for the same purpose.
Okay.
Chairman, if I could add just one point here, that it's certainly in that bottom line box that Susan provided for us. It's a comparison. While I am not happy that we are lapsing at the end of FY08 $27,000 back to the general revenue or to the Treasury, it's compared to my first task when I got here in 07 was to go tell the commissioner that we were lapsing $600,000 from FY06. And so this is a testament to Susan and her staff of working the budget so that we can make sure that we either spend it or transfer it as allowed by law. And so I just want to point that out, that we have made tremendous steps in that direction, and I want to acknowledge that.
Sure. Good. Any questions or comments? Okay, next item.
The next item, sir, is the last report under the Deputy Commissioner's report is Patrick. I have called Patrick Kershaw to come up to the table. I know there has been a lot of questions as to the turmoil in the markets and how has that affected us, especially our loan portfolio and our bond portfolio. And to give you a very brief overview on that, I've asked Patrick and Dan to weigh in on that and tell us exactly what happened to cause a meltdown, and he will also give us the answer as to how we're going to get out of this economic recession. Is that right, Patrick? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading the wrong script.
Boy, everybody's going to be listening now.
Before Patrick starts, I don't know, Patrick is a senior financial analyst. He's been with the agency for a little more than 2 years now, because I think you started right after I did. He used to work for Susan Brown in the accountability area. Extensive bond experience, worked at the Bond Review Board. We've been just ecstatic to have him on the financial side of the house as opposed to the accountability side of the house. So,
okay, good afternoon. The board has 3 series of variable rate bonds. 2 of them are in term mode, meaning they remarket on an annual basis. One series is the series 2004 is in a monthly mode. And when that remarketed on October 1st, the rate we received on that series was 6%. Previous to that, the rate we had been paying on that the month previously was 1.85%. So we saw a very large spike in that remarketing. That means that the interest payments for the series 2004 bonds were approximately $82,906 in September. That's jumped up to $210,000 for October. The rates for these bonds are set off of, they're priced off of the, it's called the Municipal Swap Index, and that spiked on 9/24 at 7.96. But the last time that was calculated, as of 10/15, it went back down to 3.45. So in summary, the board you currently have one series of bonds that we need to keep an eye on. They're in the monthly mode. And if the rates go back down, then there will be no need to reset rates on loans at this time. If the rates were to spike again and continue at a higher level, you may need to either reset your loan rates or fix out the bonds in a fixed rate mode.
Isn't Bernanke talking about taking the rates down even further?
That's correct, but the rates for loans aren't really trading off what the Fed's setting their rates at. The rates for loans are setting off of fear and whatever else is driving the market right now. The commercial paper rates are high. Every other rate is high. So even if he drops the federal funds rate, that doesn't mean that the rates that we're going to be paying are going to drop along with it.
Not even any drop. No change.
No, they've gone down to 3.45 from the spike at 7.96. What I'm saying is that the rates that the SIMFA and LIBOR are trading off are setting are totally disengaged from the federal funds rate, which is kind of unusual, but that's what's going on right now. So we're due to remarket again on October 31st, and at that time we'll see what the rate happens to be. I would assume it's going to be around 3 to 4%. But this isn't the only agency that's seen that kind of spike. Texas Department of Transportation, Texas Water Development Board, Texas Public Finance Authority all have variable rate debt outstanding, and they've all seen the same spike. So right now everybody's in kind of a wait-and-see mode, and it's probably the best tack to take right now.
What's the average rate on our loan portfolio that's matched off against those bonds?
5 1/4.
5 1/4.
We changed the rates last year to 6%, but the bulk of the loans we made last year were 5 1/4. This year they're primarily at 6%. I guess I don't really see that we're not going to be in a position to have to make any significant changes until next lending season. I guess the fluctuations in the market, we want you all to be aware that, I guess one thing is that we're tracking them every day so that we have an understanding about what's going on. Secondly, we're in a fairly stable position right now because our other two variable rate notes are in annual mode, and we reset those in July and August. So if we continue to have the market that we currently have into July and August of next year, then we will have substantial issues that we'll have to talk about.
I think, Paul, in terms of what's going on in this bond market right now, is that this is another dislocation right now, and we're hoping it's an opportunity if you're a buyer of bonds. But if you're trying to unload bonds right now, I mean, I know there was a client that I was talking to the other day from a firm that had great muni bonds and had to go out and sell these at 85% discount. I mean, a 15% discount just to raise liquidity. And so and I've asked how long it's going to last, because if you're a buyer, it's an unbelievable opportunity. But the word I've had is that it's going to be a short-term deal. That this will adjust itself, and it might be 2 or 3 month window. I don't know if that's accurate, but I think it's smart to watch it, because that net spread we're losing from money that goes back into ours to make additional loans.
Correct.
So that's what worries me, is at a time when student loans are getting retrenched, we're losing the capacity to make more student loans because of that pressure. So,
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Got a question?
if you figure it out, kind of tell us all about it.
Yeah, that's right. I can use all the help I can get.
Buy high.
Has nothing to do with the higher education board.
40% of our debt portfolio is variable rate, and of that 40%, how much is not really going to be affected till next summer?
The 40%, 50. Your total is variable rate is 286 million minus the 52.7, so you're at like 230.
So the balance of that, okay,
Right.
is
And
next.
those won't be reset until next July and August.
It seems to me, I remember that when we were doing that last bond issue, that there was quite a discussion between variable rate and fixed rate, and I don't remember exactly what we came down on deciding, which way we were going to go with that.
We went fixed.
The last series of bonds we sold 2 series of bonds, and they were both sold as fixed rate. I think we did have that discussion, and there was no determination made at that time. I think
It was really predicated on what our expected loan volume was going to be,
I
and
see.
we weren't anticipating making Stafford loans at the time. We do have a reservation for another $50 million of bond capacity. The reservation expires sometime in February. That was the pocket of money that we were really considering fixed or variable, because if the Stafford market caved and we were going to have to step up and make a significant amount of Stafford loans, First Southwest and Vincent Hopkins they were advising us that we should make do a variable rate issue. So we haven't had to cross that bridge yet, because Stafford volume for us is still pretty much the same as it was last year.
Thanks.
Thank you. One other item, and rather quickly, Mr. Chairman, that I had not put on my report, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody has received a copy. I believe that all board members received a copy of a letter came out of from the governor early last week or sometime last week, sort of just saying, we're good in Texas. The economy is still sound and stable, but we are bound to be affected by by what's happening at the national scene. And he's asked us to look at our budgets, specifically at our travel. We are putting together a letter, and we certainly will be monitoring all our expenses in anticipation that we may be asked to take other steps. But right now, I just wanted to mention that's looming out there, and we'll certainly keep an eye on it.
Well, he made quite a talk about that just yesterday, didn't he? Don't I remember him talking about the strength of Texas versus other states around the country?
A couple of days ago.
Yeah, that was a couple of days ago.
It was very positive, recently.
Right.
Because of the great
we were
economic
doing
development
substantially
board
better
in
than
Texas
just about
won.
anybody else in the country.
That's it.
And that's what the letter says, that he sent to all the board members and to the commissioner, that,
No, you're right.
but there's still a possibility. All he's saying is, don't let your guard down,
Give
because,
us a heads up.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
That concludes the Deputy Commissioner's report, Mr. Chairman, unless anybody has any other questions.
Okay, just make sure that I'm still on track. We're moving into the audit 5
That's right.
item, auditing. And so the next item on the agenda is consideration of approval for internal audit reports. These audit reports were sent to you under separate cover by Tony Teague, our interior auditor. And so Tony's going to make a presentation to us now, bring us up to speed.
Okay. Yeah, good afternoon.
Anthony?
Yes, sir. The first audit report is item 5A1, which is the audit on the general controls over the agency information resources. I'm going to assume that you've had the opportunity to read the report. I've only discussed the issues that we came across during the audit. There were 2 issues on this audit. The first one was that the agency lacked an enterprise-wide process for login, tracking, and reviewing user access. And another issue was that the status of IT-related work request was not easily tracked by the users. We have shared our recommendations with the management, and they are in the process of implementing them.
Any questions at this point? You've got, 8 items to do, Tony?
I have a total of 12 items.
Okay.
So the next audit report is item 5A2. That's a report on the review of data security at the Texas Schools project at the UT Dallas. We believe that the school should improve controls in the areas of passwords, VPN compliance with TAC 202, and the requirement for FAPA. Also, the school should formalize their shutdown procedures and restricting access to the server room. And we also feel that they needed to install smoke and heat detectors. All the recommendations have been shared with them in a much more detailed report. So this is just an executive summary.
Okay, any questions before we move on? Okay.
Item 583 is a report on the review of data security at the Education Research Center at the UT Austin. We believe that the center should improve controls in the area of VPN, penetration testing, and of course developing some formal policies and procedures regarding the security and the confidentiality of data. And we feel that they need to improve the controls by relocating the server to a much more secured environment. So until they implement all these recommendations that we've been shared with them, we are not recommending that we release the data. The next item is item 5A4, which is a report on professional nursing shortage reduction program. We found two issues here. The first one is that there was no monitoring controls to ensure that the grant money was expended on the professional nursing program by the institutions. And we feel that the second one, we feel that the program should have some rules and procedures that will include how requests for the return of unused funds from the institutions. And we've also shared all this with the management. The next item is item 5A5. That is the report on our audit of financial aid at St. Edward's University. We concluded that the institution comply with all the relevant coordinating board rules and regulations for the award of financial aid during fiscal year 2007.
Tony, how do you determine which one of these schools you're going to do a spot on and on like this? Do you have some sort of a program as to how you do that?
Yes, we do have a risk assessment process that we go through, and it was based on the risk assessment process that we chose to go to St. Edward's. And also, since it is also part of a pilot project that we are doing, we also took into consideration the proximity. So
there was no suspicion of wrongdoing or anything at all in this. It was just a random selection.
No, we did not have any suspicion of wrongdoing. It was just a random.
Okay, thank you.
The next item is item 5A6, which is the follow-up report on the management controls assessment by Deloitte and Touche. As you will remember, when they released the report in July 2007, we had implemented I think 36 of the 50 recommendations, and at this point we have been able to implement 44 or 88% of the recommendations. So six of them are outstanding, and we will go back and check on them later on during the year.
Tony, of the 6 that are remaining, one of them really is more or less an ongoing function. Let's see. I had this marked last night. The implementation, 1.22 or I.22.
Yes, sir. That's all.
Have we done an initial evaluation of the organization structure, implement agency-wide policies, et cetera, in this area? Continuous. This is part of what Arturo has referred to as his continuous improvement program.
Yes, sir. It is part of the continuous improvement program. So it is not a recommendation that we will close any time from now. It is an ongoing.
Right, but if we've made, I guess my point is simple. If we've made the initial effort to begin it, if this is off and running and we're now doing it, then I would count it as it being implemented rather than never to be implemented. I would just describe it as ongoing, but check it off.
Yeah, we have done that in initial assessment of the structure, and that in fact that was why the three major the organizations that the commissioner has done were able to be done.
Well, that's what I thought. So I guess it's sort of semantics, but, Arturo, as I see it, this is actually another one that's been initiated, will continue to be done, and it's an ongoing.
That's correct, Fred. In fact, the other 5 that are, I think he put them as in progress, or we have started, and some of them, as you will read there in the details, we just need to finalize the procedure, write some written procedures and so forth. But they all have. We have started work on all 6 of those, and overall, I know you're asking about that one specifically, but if I may, I think that Tony bears that out in his follow-up report. Very pleased with the progress that we have made from 2007 when I got here, and even though we're not completely there, we are working towards it and have made tremendous amount of progress. And of course, the biggest thing is that we are stressing every day that we are working on that, as I term it, a culture of excellence that calls for continuous improvement. And that I pledge to you, and I continue to pledge that we will continue down that road.
Well, just for the sake of the committee, the remaining 5 that you touched on are all set to be completed between this year end and calendar year end.
Yes.
In August of 09.
In August of, well, actually, there's one in December of 09.
Yeah,
Right.
December 09.
Any other comments, discussion? Okay, Tony?
Yeah, the next item is item 5A7 is the follow-up on physical security controls. I'm happy to report that management has implemented all the four recommendations contained in a report of September 14, 2007. Then, item 5A8 is the follow-up on review of business continuity plan. Due to some constraints beyond the control of management, they have not been able to implement the two recommendations. And but we hope that they will implement it before the end of the year. Yeah, December 8th.
Does that cover those 8 now, Tony?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so at this point, we're ready to move on, and as we've mentioned earlier, I believe that we approve all of these en masse. So does anyone have any additional questions or anything about these audit reports that you don't understand or want to know more about? And if not, we'll need approval for these audit reports, so we will need a motion to accept. By Bob Wingo, second.
Second.
By Brenda, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next item on the agenda is consideration of annual internal audit report for full year 08 and the risk management and audit work plan for full year 09. Tony, you're still
Yes, sir.
on the hot seat.
Yeah, the annual internal audit report is a requirement of the Texas Internal Audit Act that we have to submit an annual report that contains a summary of all the activities of internal audit function. I'm not going to go through the 55 pages, but if we could start with page 1, which is a summary of the work plan for FY08, then we have we included some notes in front of the audit projects. C will be for those projects that we completed during the year, and O will be those projects that are ongoing, and we have CO for projects that we are carrying over to FY09, And this year I made an exception. I put N for non-risky area. I recognize the work that the management has done in the area of budgeting. So I feel that the controls have improved in that area, so there will not be any need for us to carry that project over to FY09. And page 2 contain explanation for the deviation from the work plan. That was because we lost our IT auditor since April of 2008. We hope to get a replacement before the end of next month, and there were some medical conditions affecting the staff of the internal audit shop. Then the next page is a document that for the report on the external quality assurance review of the internal audit function. The last time that the report was done was 2004. We are required to do a peer review every 5 years, so we will be doing one this year. So this report that you're looking at is the one that you might have seen 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. But we are required to include it. Then, if there is no question, we can turn to page 12.
No, but I just want to say congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much.
Your report.
Then we could turn to page 12. That is the listing of all the audits that we completed during the year, and we listed them from page 12 to page 45. You have actually seen some of the audit recommendations, and some of them are included in this 8 that we just talked about. Then the next important item is our plan for FY09, which is contained on page 48. We plan a total project hours of 5,872, and new projects we plan on spending 4,432 hours. That will take 75% of our time, and we have a follow-up and external audits.
Tony, the couple questions I've got. The category that you term consulting services, there's 3 items for the 09 plan.
Yes, sir.
Are those for outside institutions or agencies?
No, they are for this agency. It's in-house.
Well, I had noticed that during the fiscal year 08, you had, I guess page 46, you noted completing 2 consulting engagements reviewing data security.
Yes, sir.
At UT Dallas, UT Austin. Were those consulting engagements for those institutions?
No.
Those were for the agency's benefit. Okay. And then the second question is, I noticed that the hours for the 09 internal audit work plan are about 6% fewer hours than were actually expended in the results for 08. Is that 6% reduction in hours, is that a timing thing on replacing the staff member you lost in April?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because and also, in fact, up to now, we do not have the IT auditor on board, so we were losing him for September and October, probably for some part in November too. That's why.
So this work plan takes into account your current staffing level and when you'll have that position replaced.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Are you interviewing for that position now, Tony?
We already finished with the interview process. In fact, we made an offer to someone today.
But the next page, I think, shows you a breakdown and shows you what you were asking, because it has the assigned hours by position, and you will see that that one is lower than the other, for the reason that you just mentioned. Tony, is there any other thing on the plan or on
the only other thing is the risk assessment that start from page 51. It is there. We still follow the same format that we've been using, but the other consideration that we took in deciding on the project for FY09 was the result of the enterprise risk management that we have been doing. So we did look at some of those processes and chose a couple of projects too. So.
Is this risk assessment, is it a combination of questionnaires and interviews with management and staff, or I know it's a lot of components, but generally speaking?
Yes, it is a combination of, and we did identify the risk factors, and then we send out the instruction forms guiding them on how to rank all the auditable units.
And do you sit down and have face-to-face interviews with management as well?
If they have some issues, then we will do that.
Also, in terms of the board, is the board asked to participate in giving their feedback in terms of the audit plan for 09? What I mean by that is, do you survey the board and ask if we have any particular areas that we would like to have audited in 09?
No, I did not do that this year. In fact, I didn't do it in 07 and 08 because of the experience that the agency was having. It was obvious that loans and data are the most critical area. So, but next time I will do that.
I would just encourage that as a standard process.
Yes. Thank you.
I did have another question.
Yes,
so you take the risk assessment, and then that somehow translates up into this FY09 internal audit work plan?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I guess I'm having a little trouble tying in the two documents, and I'm wondering if there's a way that we can make it easier, because I can't, by looking at the 09 plan, tell what risk we're auditing to, and I try to cross-reference it with the risk assessment, and I just can't quite seem to get there.
Okay.
Is there
any,
and I certainly don't want to create a lot of work, but I think it is important to have an assessment of how this plan relates to risk.
In fact, yes, I do agree with you. If you look on page 51,
okay. I may not know
I'm sorry.
how to read it right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Items 12, 13, and 14, which are trusted funds.
Okay.
The taxes be on time, and the formula funding, and we could those three are under the new projects in the FY09. But next time I will try to indicate the risk and link them together.
Yeah, and it's certainly nothing that would prevent me from making a recommendation on the plan, but it is something I would actually like to have soon, just so I have a better handle on.
Yeah, I'll link it together. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be terrific.
I'll do that. Thank you.
The other comment I wanted to make on page 49 is that 75%, I think, if I'm reading this right, what that number says is that's your quote-unquote chargeability percentage. That's the actual amount of time you and your staff spend on audit work.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I think that's a solid number. I do. I think that's pretty much in line with industry standards.
Industry standard, yeah. That's
my experience, and I see you nodding your head. Okay. All right. Thank you.
That's a good suggestion, Brenda, and Arturo and I have noted your recommendation to make a standard process for consulting with the board members.
Thank you.
That's a good suggestion. Is there any other discussion? Because we need to take a vote to accept his recommendation. Okay. If we have a second or a motion to accept his recommendations as recommended.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. By Brenda and seconded by Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So now we move to the next item on the agenda is the discussion of the state auditor's report on energy savings performance contract. And this item does not require a action by the committee. But go ahead.
The item was just presented to you for information purposes. I know that you might have received the audit report from the state auditor's office, but we just put this one page as a summary, and we've accepted the recommendations of the state auditor's office, and making plan to implement them.
Tony, as I remember, the paper that came out on that showed comparisons of how various entities within the state were utilizing. I'm not sure how to put this, but how they developed what they were going to pay.
Yes.
And we in the higher education board were somewhere down the line, rather far. Is my memory somewhat correct?
It is correct.
Is there something that we have to do to make it better? Or is that the position that was laid out in that paper about where we want to be, ought to be?
Yeah, what we plan on doing is to follow the recommendations of the state auditor office in order to improve that process.
Yeah. I remember there were some fairly significant dollars involved.
Yes, sir.
In every one of the categories.
It is true.
So, is there anything more we ought to do with that?
Nothing.
Are you comfortable with where we are with it right now?
Oh, I do not know if Susan Bryan, because the audit falls in the area.
Yeah. While she's coming up here, I just had two.
She has a comment.
Susan is going to address that one point.
Do you remember?
We have draft rules that are going to be coming to the board in January that are part of what the state auditor's office has requested. It's about, we actually get very few of these programs. It's where they're doing and we've implemented some new rules, or we are proposing some new rules that are coming. They'll be here to y'all in January. that will deal with the audit findings.
So it's work in progress.
Right.
Okay, good. Brenda, you had a couple of
That's-
questions? Or was that the question? Okay. Thanks very much. Good. So this concludes that. That does not require a vote. So we go to the next item on the agenda, which we will now move to the consideration of amendment number 5 to the contract for audits of agency's loan program and agency-wide financial statements for the fiscal year ended August the 31st of 07 by KPMG. And Tony, you will present your thoughts on that.
Yes, sir. The audit of FY 07 resulted in additional 153 hours to the tune of 31,239, and we had questioned KPMG when we received that bill, and that was why they provided us off with that spreadsheet. The actual overage was 328 hours, and because of some inefficiencies on their part, because they lost a couple of their staff and they had to spend extra time training them, so that was why they had the 175. So they did not bill us for that 175. And the 153 hours that they were billing us was for the extra hours that they had to spend on some of the adjustment to the books. And also this is the first year they did the audit after we did the loan migration. So that also contributed to some extent on the overage.
Tony, I'm not quite sure I understand exactly what happened. How did it work that we didn't get the numbers in the right boxes? The auditors had to, outside auditors had to do some additional work to get all that resolved with our staff?
Yeah, my understanding was that the 21,384 was basically due to some adjustment that they had to do when they came back to do the audit that somehow the staff had not done properly, so they had to do that. That was my.
If they came back tomorrow or next month, would they have to do the same thing again, or are we comfortable with the corrections that have been made as they work through this process?
If they come back again, they would not have to do this again.
Okay.
Because it was just a one-time incident.
Okay. Good.
Tony, I had some questions about the inefficiency adjustments that KPMG made.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned not billing for 175 hours because they had to bring some green staff up to speed and train them during the course of just turnover on the project team.
Yes, sir.
But I noticed that in the summary of the hours that the partner in charge of the audit actually spent 22 fewer hours than originally budgeted, but in the efficiency adjustment actually ended up adjusting that efficiency up 30 hours, and then the same thing happened on the IRM senior to the tune of 15 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Explain to me how they can adjust unexpended hours upward for efficiency.
I do not know how they adjusted for efficiency. Well, I knew how they adjusted it for the inefficiency.
Yeah, I understand the inefficiency
Yes, but
in reducing hours for that, but there would have to be some kind of productivity measure or some kind of
I do not know, sir.
I have a suggestion
We'll ask
too.
them.
Why aren't we, or why can't we, negotiate fixed fee contracts versus having these variable contracts where they can add additional hours? If they're contracting for a specific audit, why can't we have it all inclusive? That's just a question.
It's a good question, Bob. Part of it is there is some issue of scope. It's like when I bid a project, I usually have to live with either a fixed lump sum or a fixed unit price.
So do I.
But there are clauses that if the scope of the project is expanded beyond what we knew in the specifications and drawings,
then there should be an addendum.
There's an opportunity to adjust. So I think you raise a good question. These fees come under an existing contract that we're living with, but I do want to understand what was legitimate scope that KPMG couldn't have anticipated, and what are they living with what they ought to be living with. And then going forward, I think fixed fee is a legitimate goal.
Or not to exceed.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bob. Yes.
No, Fred, I think you were getting ready to maybe elaborate on a good point. It's kind of where we've been from, Bob, and what kind of records we really thought we had at the time. I think on a go-forward basis, probably definitely need to do that. And I believe we'll be in a better position probably to negotiate that than we were the last 2 years.
It just seems to me to be a way of the world now. I mean, I used to have contracts that were variable contracts that trued up the numbers every 6 months. Most of the contracts, of course, I'm not an accountant, but are fee-driven, and they basically are telling us now, what you negotiate is what you get, and at the end of the year, you can negotiate a new contract.
Yeah, I think
it takes a lot of risk out of what we're doing.
Part of what we're looking at here, and I agree with you, that's the approach I prefer. But this is, to some degree, as we look back at what's been done the past 2 years, it's like the difference between a remodeling and or remediation contract and building a new house from scratch. If you're building a new house from scratch on a clean lot, you ought to know what to expect.
Yeah.
When you're going in and remodeling and you don't know what's behind those walls, it's a little different. So, not that some people don't take the risk of a fixed price on that. But.
Duly noted.
Fred, I think your question's a great question, though. I mean, Brenda, can you tell us how that?
I was kind of looking at Brenda too.
I'm just that's interesting. There's 45 hours of that put back in as efficiencies.
No, I don't know what it means. I'm trying to figure it out, but I just don't know.
Well, what was the substance of the statement about green employees that Fred brought up initially? Was there some employees that were in a steep learning curve or something that had not done what we would hope that they would have done, and they had to do it for us?
Yes, sir. What happened was that they had an employee who knew our system, and during at the beginning of the audit, they had to go overseas. So somebody else who was not experienced had to take over. So that learning curve was what resulted in their own inefficiencies.
Tony, do we have a controller type person in that arena that can oversee these things so that we can do this in-house as opposed to having to have the auditors come in and then help us redo it?
We do have a controller type of person in house, but what is happening is that GASB 34 has never been done in the history of this agency. So everybody is learning as we go along. This is the second year that they did the audit. If you will remember, the the adjustment that they gave us in 2006 was about two or three pages long. So the adjustment for 07 is less than what it was in 06.
Any other question or discussion? Welcome to the real world. Or have you been in the real world and this is not the one, Lori?
I don't know what's real anymore.
Well, we're glad to have you here finally. What did you have to? Last I heard, you were in El Paso or something.
I was in Lubbock before that.
Oh, before El Paso.
Frequent flyer miles. Did you make it to Harlingen? Did you make it to Harlingen today?
Yeah. No, I did. I was trying to, that geography issue that's on the board agenda for tomorrow.
You're a personal test.
I was doing a site visit.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll need a good night's rest tonight after all this today.
Laurie, welcome. We missed you.
Yeah, we did. And we talked about you a little bit. It was good.
I know I had a friend watching.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure. Okay, so we're to the point now in this discussion. Is there any other points anybody wants to make? Otherwise, we need to vote on it. If not, then would we accept the report that Tony has presented, as presented? And if so, do I have a motion? From Bob Wingo, second by Brenda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion
I'm
carries.
gonna vote opposed because I question some of this dollar amount. It's not significant, but I'm gonna go on record voting against it because I think we're being a little bit overbilled here.
Okay. Motion still carried. One no. Okay. Next item on the agenda is VE. 5E, in consideration of recommendation to seek 1, delegation of authority from the state auditor to perform audits of agency's loan program and agency-wide financial statements for the full year ended August 31, 2008. Is that a part of your presentation too, Tony?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's take them one at a time then, if you would, please.
Well, the reason I'm presenting this recommendation was that when KPMG delivered the report of the audit of 07 in July, I wasn't here. I was gone at that time, and I don't think the board made a decision yes or no to go ahead with the audit of 2008. However, since the delegation of authority that we obtained from the state auditor expire with the audit of 2007, if the board were to decide to do audit of 2008, then we will need to go back to the state auditor's office to get a new delegation of authority. And
what authority are they delegating?
The state auditors is the one that has the authority to conduct a financial audit.
Okay, so the financial audit itself. Yes, okay, not in terms of using an outside firm.
It is in terms of using the outside firm. So we are practically taking the audit away from them and giving it to an outside firm.
Okay.
And
so let's go back to for a second. We made a contract with KPMG. As I remember, that was about a 5-year contract.
Yes, sir.
To start with. And I remember in the meeting that we said that we would have 1-year options out to 5 years.
Yeah.
So
we
have used 2 of those options up to now, and there are still 3 remaining.
No, we've only exercised 1 option. We have a first year original and 4 additional options.
So if we chose to exercise one of those options,
Yes, sir.
then we have to go back to the state auditor to get his authority.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's understandable. Now, if we do that, then what else has to flow for us to bring, say, KPMG back? We would have the state auditor's authority given to us. Now, do we have to go out for bids again? Or can we just go straight to, excuse me, Bob, go ahead.
Joe, the way I understood it, I think we're talking two different things here, right? One is the state auditor to have permission to go out and have an outside audit.
For 30 years.
Last time we did that for 2 years. This year, and Tony asked some other questions about this for 1 year. Then it seems like, don't we have the option to either exercise our option with KPMG or then go out and find another?
That's right. That's my understanding.
Yeah. Is that right, Arturo?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. And what staff is recommending, that if the board decides, one, to do another audit, two, and we get the authority from the state auditors, that if those two things happen, staff is recommending that we go out on an RFP instead of simply exercising the 30-year option with KPMG.
Okay, and that's item number 2 here of issue request for qualifications?
That's right.
Okay.
Item number 2. And that's so that if we were to amend it one more time, if this board decided to do another audit and the state auditor granted the authority, delegated the authority, and amended KPMG one more time, it would push the contract close to $1 million with all the amendments, including the one that you just approved. And so it is our recommendation that we go out and request qualifications. And of course, KPMG may be one of the ones that bid, but put it through a competitive bid instead of simply exercising the option.
Do you have flexibility under our current contract to go ahead and renegotiate an option price?
That I don't know.
We do have we do have that flexibility if we want to, and it's only we never. I don't think we ever explore that, and if the cost is a concern, I think it would be reasonable for us to call them in and say we want to renegotiate it.
So, Tony, as I remember that the annual cost was to be $250,000 a year? Was that
$250,000 a year plus the 6% escalation clause.
6% escalation?
Yes, sir.
Per year?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, if we went to just the outside and ordered RFQs sent in, we still got to go through all the same routine and negotiate new deals and so forth to select one.
Yes.
Would it be worthwhile before we did that to find out just how far you could negotiate KPMG down so we could make a decision based on that set of economics versus the $250,000?
If the decision of the board was to do another audit for FY08 and in view of the time constraint, it might be wise for us to call KPMG and say we want to renegotiate that price, and if the price they give us is reasonable, then we won't have to go through that process of regional RFQ and interview and everything that could take at least 2 to 3 months.
Tony, I've got a couple of questions. One, I guess, talking about the delegation authority, when we back up a couple of years ago, I know they threw a big number at us to do it. Joe, you remember what that was?
It was, I don't remember what it was now, but it was a big number.
So it made us think about, going outside, because we hadn't been outside for a while. They gave us that authority. It's one of the questions I would have is this something we're going to do on a go-forward basis and ask for that authority every single year, or are we going to go back like some other agencies and have the state auditor do the audit himself? And what do you have any idea what those costs would be? What are the costs associated with that?
With the RFQ?
No, with the state auditor.
With the state auditor?
With the state,
Versus
I do not know their rates, sir. I do not know. We never ask them to give us a quotation on the financial audit.
Like, to me, we need to get a sense of that.
But isn't the state auditor covered under their appropriation, Tony? If they did an audit of our...
No, I think they bill you.
No,
Yes,
they wanted a big number from us,
They
Arturo.
did.
I can't remember exactly what it
They bill
was.
you. No,
Yeah.
Because that's really one of the things that got our attention at that point.
that number that showed
between the
KPMG,
state auditor and
because that number was just too big.
And they would bill because this is at our request, or at the board's request, not their...
No, I think they bill whether it's automatically in their plan or at our request.
I think Brenda's right.
Yeah.
That's my recollection. Yeah.
Might as well.
I mean, we can certainly check that out, Tony.
Say that again, Brenda. I'm sorry.
Yes.
You said you think they automatically bill.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, they do.
whether it's in their plan or whether it's a special request by a legislator or an agency. I think they bill you under any circumstance.
But if we have an outside audit done, we don't get billed for it, do we?
No.
Okay.
Only if, another thing is you can get the state auditor to help supplement your outside auditor.
I think the other question I'd ask, and Brenda, I think you're great at. I'm not saying you ask a lot of questions that I wouldn't think about on this committee, and I guess I'd ask two questions. I'd ask this, Tony, of you and Art both. Bob's been through the whole gamut, for many years here, and I think the outside audit was a great idea for where we were, especially with the uncertainty where we were in terms of our loan system, the conversion, all those issues, and we had great concern about that. And I guess two questions is one is I think that question of comparison of costs, we're going to either have the state auditor do it or outside auditor do it. What's the comparison there? But secondly is do we feel like our internal controls are sufficient enough now? And did we have material enough discoveries of what we found in the audit that would discourage us from going back to a state auditor? And I say it from a couple of perspectives. It's I really want to know, would like to have from Art and Tony going into a session, the amount of staff time we spend on this also, because I think that's a consideration. That's not a hard cost, but it is a hard cost. It's where that staff could be working on something else. And I'm not trying to diminish the importance of an audit. I think we have been huge advocates for this for 3 years, and it was the right decision at the right time for this board, without a doubt. But I throw those out on the table, and I'd really like to hear a comment on that, because I would suspect that it is going to be a challenge we go into the session also, and that's not a reason not to do it. But I do think I'd like to hear a comparative discussion of both those issues, both from Tony an internal control standpoint, and secondly, Art, from a standpoint of the amount of time that's got to be spent on it.
Well, can I throw one other thing in there that we talked about, and we did this last time, Joe, as you well remember, you were a big proponent of this, is beefing up Tony's internal staff.
Right.
Because that was the other part of it, is we didn't feel
It was just Tony back then.
It was just Tony. That was it. And he'd lay out a program of work, and you'd say, well, Tony, how many of them, how many are there here that can do this? And of course, the answer was you're looking at him.
Yeah.
So that was an element of our ability to do things in-house as well.
Good point.
Anyway,
Well, excuse me, go ahead.
No.
No,
I
we're
was
going to
gonna
ask you a
respond to
question.
Whit.
Respond, go ahead.
Well, based on the things that you have mentioned, and not on any one by itself, but certainly the session coming up, the cost, which should not be a driver, but certainly a concern. But more importantly, based on the fact that we received an unqualified opinion from our external auditors, KPMG, for the last 2 years. Also based on the fact that the second audit, the one for FY07, contained no carryover or unaddressed items from the first audit, and the fact that they noted that we had corrected all of those. Based on the fact that, as Bob has mentioned, that we now have 4 internal auditors as opposed to 1 when I first got here. Based on the fact that, yes, there's always risk. I mean, we can't ignore that. But in my professional opinion, my qualified opinion as your CFO, as your Chief Operating Officer, I believe it is an acceptable risk, and our recommendation had been that if we could have a chance to implement some of the controls, some of the procedures that we have started working on. You've seen the result of one of them, the quarterly report that you have asked for, that we continue to work on. That was where my recommendation was, that if we could have a chance to do that, instead of having staff time devoted to the external audit, and it does take literally thousands of hours. I mean, we'll do it if this is what the board says, but that is my reaction to your question, Whit. And if I didn't answer your question, please.
But Arturo, in saying that, then help me understand what the next step is. Are you saying delay it for a year, or is that what you're saying?
A year or two to give us time to implement some of the things that we need to.
Okay.
To beef up.
And then at the end of that 2-year period, go back and audit?
Well, that would be up to the board.
I have comments too. I mean, when you're finished, I'll give you my 2 cents worth.
Yeah. Well, I wanted him to finish where he was in that conversation. I was trying to get to the end of it. So take 2 years and then back up and audit 08 and 09.
That's my follow-up question, is if we were to, because of the timing with the legislative session, if the committee chooses to recommend to the board to delay a year, are you then saying we should go back and pick up and audit 2 years?
Well,
the year we skipped, and then the next fiscal year?
I would think that we at that time look at where we are, Fred, and if the board or the committee still feels that we need to come back, that certainly would be an option. I'm not saying that my recommendation is not let's skip a year or two and then automatically come back. If that's what the board wants, sure. But I'm saying let's assess the situation at that time. But that's our recommendation.
I'm a relatively new board member, and my personal opinion is the volume of our budget, the size of our budget, the dollars that we're dealing with, I think we should be audited every year. I think we should have, for our own peace of mind, those safety valves in place where we know exactly if anyone calls on us and we go, well, we haven't been audited in 2 years, so we're not absolutely certain where we stand, although we've put all these internal controls in place. What's the purpose of an audit? I mean, I think it's a safeguard. I strongly recommend that we have audits. Any of us in business that have companies, I have clients that audit me every 90 days. I mean, a complete, almost use inappropriate language.
I can tell you like it.
I stop myself, but I get on some client. I mean, to me, what it does for us, it also keeps your house in order. You make sure that there is nothing out of line, and if there's anything that remotely gets off track, you can get it back on track in a hurry. That's just my recommendation. I think it's good for the health of the agency, irrespective of what the cost may be substantial. But if there's an error of any significance, the cost will be much greater than what it would be for an audit.
Well, I certainly have to agree with Bob. because I'm not adverse to risk, but I don't want to take risk foolishly. And when you consider our checkered history and how far we've come, it seems to me that the question on the table really is, do we want to take the risk of perhaps backsliding? Because if we're going to be busy doing all these other things, to me, it says that we need an audit more than we think we do, and that we ought to do it. And before we make a decision not to do it, I think we ought to find out, too, get some idea about what the cost may be. It may not be as bad as we think it may be.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And because that way we're making an informed decision as opposed to just one that's emotional or whatever. Because now we're looking at real numbers. My sense is from other activities I'm involved in beyond this, that right now these people are vulnerable to negotiating lower prices. These people being auditors generally. And so we may be able to get a sweetheart deal out of this thing right now because the timing may be right. So that is also something that needs to be considered. And what dollars would we really be committing? It may be a bargain. And we don't know that now.
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
You know, and let me tell you, having been my banking background, I mean, if you say, can I have an audit or can I not have an audit, I mean, that's an easy response. The answer is, give me an audit, okay? I mean, and I agree 100% with you, Bob, especially from a fiduciary standpoint and our role as board members. But I do agree with you, Joe. I think it is important that we look at the cost, and I think I'd be interested to know how much staff time you have to spend, Art, with an internal auditors. You know, I mean, I have no idea. I mean, maybe Brenda can speak to that, but there is time there. But if we could see us side by side, because I know there are sensitivities about us rolling into the session, and at the same time I want to be sensitive to that, and yet at the same time not throw away our risk hat. So I think seeing a side by side would be important to help us make a, you know, as you're saying, the full context. Maybe we're not talking about much difference in price, Jeff. You know,
maybe a big difference. I just don't know because we're flying blind now. Raymond, you got a question?
Well, I was going to give you a little bit of background. When Tony and Arturo came to see me about this issue, I asked the very question that's been implicit. I said, well, obviously there is a margin of greater risk if you don't do a yearly audit, and that was very clear. Nobody disputes that. And my question was, given your knowledge of state agencies, and given what would be considered a margin of acceptable risk, which is to say minimal risk, can you recommend that we go 1 or 2 years without an audit in the context of what is an acceptable level of risk, given the controls we have in place, given the fact that our last audit had no significant findings, given the fact we beefed up our internal auditing staff and that we have a much greater capability to detect in any irregularities in our procedures? And the answer that I was given from Arturo and Tony was, yes, we were within the bounds of acceptable risk. Now, if the board feels very strongly about this issue, what we will do is we will go out and get some estimates of what it would cost to do the audit at various levels. We'll look at the cost of the state auditor, we'll look at external auditors, and we'll present you our findings. We will also tell you what it will cost, what we will have to do internally in order to absorb the cost.
Yeah, I think, as Whit said, you put these things all side by side and we do a financial analysis of what this risk is going to be, then we know where we're going. That's a more professional way to do it, I think, than just by the seat of our pants.
That's fine.
And I think we also have to calculate in that whole scenario, if it's done internally, well, that means there's a cost to it that we have to account for as well. So there's no free lunches. The question is put these things together side by side, which one is the best deal for this organization?
Joe, I'd also ask, I think it'd be interesting, I don't know this, but it'd be interesting to know, and not that we gauge our decisions off what other state agencies do, but there are certain state agencies that handle significant money flow-throughs. And, I think it'd be interesting to know how many other external audits are engaged on an annual basis without any type of fault, and compared to how many. And, because with the amount of flow-through funds we've got here being, I guess we're over now with the total budget, we're over $1 billion, $1.2 billion or something like that. Yeah. So, but, and I'm not saying that gauges our decision, but it does give us another point of reference relative to the universe of state agencies, and that's just a foreign subject to me, and I'd be interested to know that also. I'm sure there's the state auditor's office can tell us that in a snapshot, probably.
Well,
were you going to say something?
Brenda?
Well, I think we should have annual audits, right? And it would be difficult to talk me out of believing that. In terms of the timing of the audit, I would sit down with KPMG and sit down amongst yourselves and, does it have to be as of August 31st? I mean, can it be as of February 28th? I don't know, but there are, maybe there's some flexibility in exactly how we're doing this audit and when that might help in terms of staff resources, but also in terms of money. Some companies actually, not publicly held companies, but other companies have a fiscal year that corresponds sometimes with a cheaper audit for one reason or another, for one reason. So, I would just encourage you to talk with the auditors about that. Again, we can supplement KPMG staff with our own audit staff to save money, or Tony can hire contract staff to supplement with KPMG, or we can talk to the state auditor's office. And frankly, it wouldn't matter to me if it were state auditor or an outside firm, as long as the scope was appropriate. I struggle, Arturo, with your comment that it takes staff thousands of hours. If I'm reading this right, the KPMG audit plan was 2,000 hours. So I'm not sure how our staff would incur more than that. I don't know, something there just doesn't work for me. And what I would encourage you to do again is sit down with KPMG and say, these are the problems we're having. We can't continue to work in this fashion. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What do we need to change in this relationship? How can we make it better? Because it just, to say you're spending thousands of hours is a little puzzling me. Hold on.
Well, the main driver to that, Brenda, for that is that KPMG is auditing on a GASB 34 format. We do not keep our books GASB 34, so we have to convert all our
I understand that, but still thousands of hours. You could have some sort of computerized system created to do a conversion for you or something. It still, in my mind, doesn't make sense. And then the last question, and perhaps this is something we should talk about and make a decision on today, but if this is something that we want to do on an ongoing basis, should we add this to our LAR? Additional funding.
I think we should, and I think we should. I don't think it should even be discussed. I think we should have an audit annually. I was shocked when I came on this board that there wasn't an outside auditor, and I think this is one of the best things we as a board have done for the agency, and it's really our duty, I think, to continue to do it.
Brenda, did I hear you say you don't really have preference whether it's an external auditor or whether it's a state auditor?
As long as the scope is adequate.
Okay. Because I would suspect the external audit's going to be more expensive, and I may be wrong in that, Bob. In the state audit.
Well, I think Joe's comments are probably right on. With the marketplace the way it is, we may find external auditors
looking for work.
And I maybe a cake and have your cake and eat it too solution would be, because Brenda, you asked one of the things I was concerned about, if it really is going to chew up a lot of key staff member time during the legislative session. In addition to talking to Pete Mark and the state auditor about cost, I'd like to talk to them about time. You know, not only number of man hours, but, you know, elapsed time. If we were to say, you know, we don't want to start this audit till June 15th.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how quickly could you complete an audit of fiscal year 08, you know, even though we're 10 months out or whatever? And you know, can that be reeled in quickly in a relatively compressed period of time, particularly given the groundwork that's been done in these previous audits?
You know, that's a very key point, I think, Fred, is that we have had the last audits that we've looked at, good, clean audit, best that we've ever had. 45 years we went without any audit, and then we had to crunch all this into this compressed time to get our books straightened out. So theoretically, we should be able to, whether it's outside auditors, whether it's KPMG or the state auditors, to be able to effectively perform the audit much more rapidly than we have in the past, because we don't have near the problems now that we had in the past. And I think that there is a benefit to having somebody nosing around in the paperwork that's doing the auditing to keep everybody on straight and narrow. And
And that's also a benefit of doing an annual audit, is that you don't think in terms of chewing up staff time or taking hours of staff time, because it's part of your job. You do the audit every year. It's not like this invasive thing that happens every now and then. It's part of business as usual. You have to.
Mr. Hinton, can I chime in, just make a couple real quick points?
Good.
I guess, Mr. Wingo, the kind of the characterization that we were not audited, or we would go through a period of not being audited. I guess we get audited all the time by the state auditor's office every year for the Perkins program.
No, that wasn't a characterization I was making. Basically what I was saying was that for the health and benefit of all of us concerned, that being audited puts us in a position where we have a third-party endorsement that says everything is in place and in order.
I agree with that. Mm-hmm. I guess KPMG is here every year doing Perkins audit. The state auditor's office audits the Stafford Loan Program every year. We have a myriad of outside auditors that come in and monitor programs within the agency. So I guess I just wanted to kind of maybe give the board a little bit of comfort that when we're not doing this particular finance audit or financial audit, that we're running out of control, essentially. So I just wanted to kind of lay that out there. From a timing standpoint, and I want to back up Arturo's comment about thousands of hours. I've been here for a couple of years now, and the fundamental issues that we have from an organizational standpoint is that we are operating very much the same way we were operating 2 years ago, because we haven't had a chance to implement anything new and different to help us. So I guess we kind of feel like we're going to be audited again, and we're going to have the same people come and look at the exact same things that we did last year, because we don't have the staff in a place that we would be doing anything differently. So I guess we're certainly willing to do whatever the board wishes us to do, but we don't want to allocate funds within the business operations ineffectively, because we're going to take money away from somebody else to do that. And we feel like the mission of the agency is higher education and doing educational policy issues, which we want to support as best we can. I guess we want y'all to be prudent, of course, with the budgets. But
well, I would say that ties back into my LAR comment.
Exactly.
I mean, it's certainly, we and I understand what you're saying, but we shouldn't say because of that perhaps we shouldn't do X. I mean, I think if it's something the board feels strongly about doing, we should consider asking for the appropriate level of funding in the LAR, and that may be the cost of audit plus one FTE, or whatever the case may be.
And that's fine. I guess I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of comfort that we, the list of audits that we get is very lengthy, and it happens every year. It's not just necessarily a financial audit.
I'm assuming, though, KPMG looks at those audits as part of their scope on the agency-wide financial statement audit.
Certainly, there are some synergies that they get from
Right,
that.
and so that is actually could be part of the cost savings, and what they charge us on the financial statement audit is the fact that we already have some of these other components covered.
Agreed.
Craig, you wanted to speak?
Yeah, it's just kind of my gut reaction that given the huge amounts of money that flow through our agency, I think annual auditing would be in the best interest of the taxpayers, in the best interest of the students, and certainly in the best interest of our board.
Clearly, it's in the best interest of our board as I see it, because to just take Witt's number, what, $1.2 billion or something that that's running through here, that just by itself says high risk to me.
Sure.
And I think that it may be an inconvenience for staff, but it's always, any audit is inconvenience for staff. And but you have to do them. Please, yeah, Bob.
Mr. Chairman, I don't hear anybody saying that we shouldn't do them.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to do it. It just sounds like how we're going to go about and do it, and what kind of resources and what it's going to cost at the end of the day.
Raymond, you want to make a point?
Yes, I've got the sense of the board. We'll go out and we will examine these various options, from the state auditor to external audits to putting this thing out for bid. We can certainly kind of feel out what the market is like for commissioning this kind of work, and we'll come back to you with the various options, and then we'll have to figure out how we're going to pay for it.
Jeff, I think what would be helpful is if we can see in front of us all of the things that are being audited currently. If there's certain pass-through, flow-through monies that are already being audited, that would give us a sense of what isn't audited. And that, certainly if we're going to have an RFP, then we'd know what we're really asking for. But I think it'd be helpful for us to know it.
Well, that gets back to Brenda's point about scope.
Right.
The scope would be presumably all the things that we're not having audited, right?
Well, I assume KPMG's scope would be the entirety, but they limit their audit work because of these separate audit components. And some of them aren't routine. You probably have the comptroller come in here every so often, and et cetera, et cetera. So, but they should be. I'm assuming they are.
We will start gathering information right away.
Tony, you've been very quiet here. You're an auditor. Do you have any comments one way or the other about what we're discussing here?
The question that Mr. Witt posed about the state of internal controls, I could comfortably say that the internal controls have improved tremendously,
right,
compared to where we were 3 years ago.
And if I can just make a final comment, come to the defense of auditors. They're really not, trying to get in your way or hassle you or play a gotcha game. I mean, auditors really are here to help. And I think that there's a lot that firms get out of being audited, and a lot of it is very, very positive. First of all, you have a huge sense of comfort. And not only that, but the legislature will have a huge sense of comfort, and that's very important for obvious reasons. But you also know where you're doing well and where you're not. And along with an audit report, you generally get some sense of internal control efficiencies and weaknesses. So it all ties in to be a very positive thing. And I hope we're looking at it that way.
So what I'm hearing is that we want to ask, I guess, Arturo, you and your staff to bring back answers to these questions so we can choose our best cost time option on how to go forward with an external audit. Do you feel like you've heard the questions we want to see presented, or?
Yes, the only question that or the only issue that's not clear in my mind, and perhaps Tony can, because he's dealt with it, may clarify this, is do we go out and get you the estimates and so that you can make a decision, and then go ask the state auditor for delegated authority, or do we ask the state auditor for delegated authority, and depending on what he says, we either do or don't go get the estimates? Tony, I don't know how this works. This was in place when I got here already, so.
Yeah, because of the time constraints, we can do both of them at the same time, as the state auditor's office for the delegation, and then start collecting the pricing for how much it will cost to do the audit.
So there's no prerequisites to asking for the delegation, and we wouldn't be precluded from actually going back to the state auditor and saying, you know what, we'd rather have you guys do it because you're cheaper or faster.
No, in fact, one of their requirements, they give us the delegation of authorities to keep them in the loop. So when we issue the RFP or RFQ, everything that is happening, we are required to keep them appraised, so they will know about it.
Well, we've done a lot of speculation here as to how some of this stuff might work. It seems to me that what we need to do now is to move forward and find out what's out there in the real world and do an analysis, a financial analysis of the pros and cons of whatever it is we want to do. And then we make an informed decision up or down and move forward.
And how we're going to pay for it, since we don't have
well, that has
LAR.
to be part of the
Going into the
analysis.
next biennium, where will it be funded?
I think we can, as a committee, vote on two things to recommend to the board. One is just what you just said, Joe, doing the analysis of cost and time, the questions we've asked about the external audit. And then secondly is it sounds like we can go ahead and ask for delegation of authority so that we're able to move when this report comes back in our January meeting. Is that a fair characterization?
It is for me.
Well, I'll move that we recommend item 1 here, and then secondly, that we request staff to come back with the analysis of the cost and time analysis of the different external audit options.
Okay.
Heretofore discussed.
Shall we put it to a vote?
I'll second.
Okay, vote. Who made the motion? Oh, your motion, you made the second, Brenda? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. So, next. That's a good discussion, by the way. From my perspective, anyway. That's the kind of stuff I like to get into. Okay, where are we now?
We'll have to go to
we have to go to number 3. Okay, number 6. Consideration of approval to renew membership for fiscal year 09 with Southern Regional Education Board. Seems like I remember this from the past.
Yeah.
This is Arturo, this is your spiel.
Yes, sir. This is you're right. This comes up every year. It is an annual membership that we pay. The state of Texas pays to belong to the Southern Regional Education Board, or SREB as they call it. This is a 16-state organization where 16 states are members. They serve to advance education, educational issues. The coordinating board has been designated as the agency to pay the bill, even though the governor and certain other members of the legislatures attend the meetings and serve on that board. So it's simply your approval to pay the bill that comes with being a member of the
This
board.
is real appropriate after what we just got through talking about.
Yeah.
$200,000.
Well,
Holy smokes.
Is that,
Sorry.
But I assume it's in our LAR.
I was going to say,
This one is in our budget.
Well, all a part of this analysis.
It was asked to be placed there.
We don't have a choice whether we budget for that one or not. I mean, that one is in our budget.
Move approval.
Okay, so now Fred moves
Second.
that we do it, seconded by Brenda. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody dare stand up against it? Motion carries. Okay. Arturo, you're still up.
Item B, Mr. Chairman, is the consideration of the committee adopting our recommendation relating to the division of responsibilities that the board, that we had, the law firm of V&E conduct agency-wide. If you recall, this was taken to the different committees for the items that were under each committee's jurisdiction. The ones for the AOC were very few, very clear. We had no issue with what they came up with as to the division of responsibilities between board and board staff. We agree with their recommendations, and so we asked for consideration of approval of that recommendation.
Okay. Any discussion? If not,
I'll make a motion.
motion by Brenda, second by Bob.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next item.
Next item, Mr. Chairman, is item C, which is an amendment or a change to our rules. This one here is a rule that deals with the employee scholarships. You know, we promote in the agency our employees going to school, taking courses, professional development, working on their degrees. Sometimes, way before my time, this became part of the rules. It is really not a rule. It stands out in that section as not belonging there. It's more of a procedure than a rule. It only applies to staff. It does not apply to any institutions or any other parties. And so what we are asking is, and we posted it for repealing, we're asking that the committee approve the repealing of that rule, and that we will come in and replace it with a policy, agency policy.
Now, notice in this that you made an annotation here that Bill Franz is present to answer any questions that we might have.
I made an annotation, but I don't see Mr. Franz, so we can go get him.
I mean, is there a legal issue?
No. We ran it through him, and that's in case anybody had any questions of how we handle it.
So
It was
not
with
because you're sensitive to particular legal issues.
It was with council's approval and certainly his involvement.
Okay, so are we going to have enough people here?
I'm not leaving them.
And I just want to clarify, this is just a change from a rule to a policy, but the intent here is to keep the policy and to more or less keep the eligibility of the program the same. I mean, it's a program that the agency supports and plans to keep it safe.
Exactly, and we'll just
Great.
administer through policy instead of through rule.
Okay, I'll make a
Okay, motion. And a second?
Bob?
Second, Bob.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Motion carries.
I feel useless.
Next.
Item D is also a change to our rules. This is to Rule 1.16, and this is a two-part change that we're asking the committee to approve for us. Number one, we're asking the committee to grant us the authority to amend a contract that does not exceed where the amendment does not exceed 10% of the original contract, up to 10%, and without having to go back to either committee or board approval. The second part of that is, and this is just so that we don't have to stop work in case, in many cases the contracts are not fixed fee, they are estimates, and sometimes we do incur more costs, so that we don't have to stop work and wait for the next committee meeting. And so we have proposed that 10% leeway. The second part of this rule change is that the way that the rule reads now is that the commissioner has delegated authority to approve contracts up to $100,000, and only in the case of where the commissioner is absent from the agency for more than one day can the deputy commissioner approve on his behalf. And so we're asking for clarification to the language that reads that either the commissioner or the deputy commissioner, being your chief operating officer, can sign contracts up to $100,000. So we respectfully ask for approval of those changes. Again, we have posted it. It has been on the Texas Register for 30 days. We received no comments on it, and it was run through General Counsel for handling.
Okay, yes, Brenda?
I just have 2 points. Is it clear that it's just a one-time 10% increase? In other words, you can't do a 10%, then another 10, then another 10. I just asking the question.
It's 10% of the original contract, isn't it?
Okay,
That's
so that's
a one-time deal.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's clear.
Right.
Okay. Okay, and then just on a side note, do we have, this is perhaps a question for another day, but something to think about, do we have policies in terms of when we're bidding for specific goods, not services, but goods, how we weight technical versus price? Do we have an agency policy on that? That's something that perhaps we should look at.
I think we have looked at it, and I believe we do have some procedures on it. I don't know if we have a policy that assigns the points, but we certainly will look at it.
You know, in other words, pencils, you can bid out pencils at 100% price. Right. Are we doing that?
Okay. Does that conclude your comment?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Brenda made a motion, Bob seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next item.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, is item E. I had put down Darla, but I think I can explain that. Of course, Darla is present to answer any questions. This is a contract that we took to the chair and the vice chair of the board under the existing rules for approval under the emergency provisions of our purchasing rules. There was some confusion as to whether this particular services was included in our data consolidation contract. It was not, and so when we got the invoice for this, it was on July the 18th, which was too late to put it on the July board meeting. We couldn't wait till October to have the contract amended, so we exercised the emergency provisions. We're asking the AOC to ratify that action that we received from chair and the vice chair of the board.
Okay. We have a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Motion, Brenda. Second.
Are we the only two people here?
No. Fred, can second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Whitney and I.
I was the one who signed the
Any
deal.
opposed?
Oh, okay. That's true.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Oh,
Y'all were in such a good rhythm.
That comes over heavy and closing the barn door.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. When the cows are out already.
Item F, Mr. Chairman, is finally not mine. I believe this is a consideration of a contract between $100,000 and $750,000. We have staff, Chris Alvarado is here to present that item.
Okay, Chris.
This is a similar request from the April meeting where we requested that approval for 9 contracts this time exceeding the $100,000 limit. These are for the work study, Collegiate G-Force grants. The last year we had 27 programs. This year we have 32, and of those 32, only 9 exceeded the $100,000 limitation. So we submitted those for your approval.
Any questions, Chris? Anybody?
I move approval.
Okay, moved by Fred, second by Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Next, Susan Barnes, right?
Yes, sir. That's item 6F2. which is a college readiness initiative. Susan Barnes.
Good afternoon, members. This is a very familiar project to you in the sense that you have heard reports about this as we've given you P16 updates over the last year. Funding for this was discussed in the budget, and actually some funding requests to carry a project like this is in the LAR. What we're requesting here is to implement the collaboratives for the college readiness subjects. Remember the 4 subjects. Each subject would have a collaborative organized around it. They would cover both the specific subject college readiness standards as well as the cross-disciplinary standards. We have looked at ways to engage college faculty who help prepare teachers. And every meeting that we've been in, they've talked about the need to prepare teachers for implementing college readiness standards. And this is the initiative that will come out of my area that will work with pre-service teachers, the faculty in both arts and science area and the teacher education area, to help them have conversations and make sure that the folks who are delivering instruction in our initial teacher preparation programs in the 4-year institutions will be aware of, knowledgeable about, and have opportunity over. For this contract, it would be approximately an 18-month period. There will be symposia, which will be offered statewide for community colleges, 4-year institutions, seminars, task forces where they can work together over a period of time to implement college readiness standards through probably looking at syllabi, course materials, and then implementing those in their classrooms. And we would request the approval to move ahead with this. It has been discussed at the P&S committee in September of this year.
Okay, any questions for Susan?
How does this program interact with the 40, 60 vertical teams that are actually integrating these standards into the curriculum?
It's a very good question. The ongoing vertical teams are looking at the college readiness standards, the state texts that are being either revised or developed over the next year. Part of what will happen is, as you know, or you probably do know, that our teacher preparation programs are required to base their instruction on the texts so that their teachers walking out the door are able to deliver those texts. The state assessment for teacher certification includes and is based upon the texts. So as college readiness standards and these vertical teams work together, and as the texts become aligned with college readiness standards, it flows into those programs. Part of the issue is, of course, the timing of getting that content and information out to pre-service teachers who are walking out the door over the next 2 years and going into classrooms where those students will be expected to have courses that are aligned with college readiness standards. So it is a timely effort.
And so these 4 hosted efforts are aimed at those teachers. I guess, and I had to leave the P&S meeting early, so maybe these questions are answered there back in September. But the idea behind spending $700,000 at each of these is that we are preparing those teachers that are in the pipeline now for what they should expect in 2013.
We are working with the professors, for lack of a better term, who are actually delivering the content and their pedagogy classes. So by working with 300 or 400 different faculty members in each subject is what our goal is. They will in fact touch a number of pre-service teachers.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much, Susan. Do we have a motion to approve the interagency contract as presented?
I move approval.
Moved by Fred, seconded by Whit. There he is. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, G, our next item is consideration of request for qualifications for proposal to similar request for the purchase of services.
Mr. Chairman, there are 4 requests for proposals that we're bringing forth. The first one, I believe, is Susan Barnes also. That's the evaluation of the college readiness program. Excuse me, the Teacher Quality Grant Program. Yeah. I'm sorry.
This is another proposal that's been brought before the P&S committee. This is Title II Part A funds, and this is an ongoing program. The major change that we've made this year in conjunction with discussions with the commissioner and looking at research is that there'll be 2-year projects. There's going to be larger projects in the urban areas and rural areas that have capacity to do those. We're continuing to focus on teams of teachers so we get some systemic results. And this year, there's going to be a little bit more emphasis because they've been passed by both TEA and the Coordinating Board on college readiness standards.
Questions, comments? Okay, we need a motion. Excuse me. By Bob, seconded by
Fred.
Fred. Okay, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the second proposal or request for proposals is to conduct program evaluations, and Lynette, no? Robin? Okay.
I'm not Lynette. You're doing it. Okay.
Robin Suniga will present this one.
Okay. As you know, we have a research and evaluation unit at the coordinating board, but our staff is too small to conduct the actual evaluations. We oversee, right now we're looking at around 30 different programs that the board conducts that we're evaluating. So we have to send out RFPs for contracts to consultants to help us with that workload. The P16 and College Readiness Initiatives have, as you know, in the P16 committee, gotten approval for 3-year contracts on many of the programs. And so we need to keep up with that and issue RFPs for longer-term evaluations of these programs as well. So we are asking for the authorization to issue RFPs totaling around $600,000 for the fiscal years 2009 to 2011 to evaluate these programs.
That's $600,000 per fiscal year?
No,
or
total over those fiscal years.
Okay. Questions, anyone? Okay. Are there any do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Bob, second by
Brenda.
Brenda. Okay, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, any opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The third proposal is to conduct Phase 2 of the test alignment project, and I believe, according to my notes, Evie will present that, but I'm afraid to ask because I've gotten
We were going to wait to
the
see who you called up. And as you may recall, in October of 2007, the board approved an RFP for Phase 1 of a test alignment study. The first phase was to determine if the tests that we currently use for the Texas Success Initiative were aligned to the college readiness standards. And as a reminder, the Texas Success Initiative, TSI, is the program that determines which assessment instruments are going to be used to determine college readiness. The study is ongoing right now. It was supposed to be completed we had hoped by the end of June. It is taking longer because the test developers have been negotiating the release of their items, but it should be completed by November, December. And this is really a request to start the development of the Phase 2 study. And we apologize for being a little bit vague, but of course it's going to be determined by the results of the Phase 1 study. But we would like to begin the development of the RFP in this period between the November and the January meeting.
Okay. Questions, comments?
We have any idea on the value? Any?
Well, we don't right now, and of course we would have to come back to you if it was more than the allowed amount, which I believe is $1 million. Or 750? 750. But right now, because they could come back and say to us, everything is perfectly aligned. We do not believe that is going to happen because, as you know, the standards also do science and social studies. So we don't know exactly how much work is going to be involved in this, but we will come back to you if it's more than $750,000.
What was the cost of the first phase? It's still being completed?
Roughly $150,000.
Any other discussion? Okay, may I have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Okay, Arturo.
Mr. Chairman, the last item on the request for proposals is a request for approval to contract or to go to the Department of Information Resources to assist with the implementation of the new top 10% rules, scholarship programs, of which I believe you adopted the emergency rules this morning, or the committees did, the joint committees. If you recall, this is part of the $20 million of the $100 million incentive funds that were appropriated for FY09, the current year, is for scholarships. As you heard Lois describe this morning, we have started the efforts. We think that there may be a need for programming to gather the data because this money must be spent before August 31st. In other words, this is on the entering class of fall of 09. In case we need to, the programming cost exceeds $100,000, we don't know if it will, but in case it does, because of the time crunch, we're bringing this to the AOC for approval, and so and to go to the Department of Information Resources. We don't have to bid this because they already done the bidding for us, and it'd be an interagency contract for quick turnaround on the programming that we need. So we respectfully ask for your consideration, your approval of this item.
It needs to be spent by when?
August. No, the money has to be spent. The scholarships have to be issued before August 31st.
And this money does come out of the 20 million.
It comes out of the 20 million. They allowed us 10% of the 20 million for administrative purposes, and it would come out of that. Yes, sir.
Okay, any further questions or discussion? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Bob, seconded by Brenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, we're on page 14 now.
Yes, that's item H.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the next item on the agenda is item H, and this is consideration of adopting recommendation to add a request for incentive funds to the list of exceptional items on our LAR. If you
Arturo, that's changed.
it has changed, but and they have the change
Okay.
blue page or beige page or whatever color it is at your place. The amount has changed, but the request we still need approval.
Okay.
In July, the board, the committee, the AOC, and the board approve our LAR, and it was submitted on time. It was presented at the hearing, at the joint hearing of the LBB and the governor's office, and subsequent to that, the governor's office has asked us to add another item. Because this LAR was approved by the board, we felt that we need to bring this item back to the AOC for approval and to the board for approval to amend the LAR. The governor's office has asked us to add $50 million per year for the next biennium as an exceptional item. In other words, a total of $100 million for the biennium. Susan Brown is here in case you need any of the details, but the request is to amend the LAR for that amount.
Arturo or Susan, my question is, I think or hope I know the answer, but the first recommendation had included a number with performance funding. I'm assuming this
It's over and
is
above.
over and above.
Over and above
It does not
performance
affect our previous request
Correct.
for performance funding.
Correct.
That's exactly right.
Is this
Just
on?
a reminder in formula funding, we had 178 million in the general academic for performance funding and 100 million for the community colleges, if I remember right. Is that correct?
That's correct. Okay. Any other question? Okay.
I can't remember where is this ranked? We're putting this as what, our number 5?
Number 5.
I think it's number 5.
Our first 4 will be
Financial.
TEOG,
Texas Grant.
Texas Grant,
Be on time and
Work study,
work study.
and then this comes up in number 5. If this is what you approve, this will be number 5 on the priority list.
Say it again, TEOG, Texas Grant,
be on time and work study.
all student aid.
All student aid will remain the first 4 priorities, yes.
So we're inserting this ahead of our formula funding recommendations?
Formula funding isn't in our LAR.
Okay.
Yes. But it is. That's probably right. That's probably the 6th one.
Right.
Before college readiness.
College readiness.
P16 type initiatives.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, do I have a motion to approve the request to amend the LAR?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion made by Brenda, seconded by Bob. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, that takes us.
We have, the last item on the agenda is the list of contracts. I've already gone over that, but if there's any other questions, I'd be glad to. That is just a reporting item, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, we don't vote on that.
There is no action due on that one.
Okay. Well, we're now ready to go into executive session. Okay? The Agency Operations Committee will hold a closed session to receive legal advice on the following matters: to seek the attorney's advice about pending or contemplated litigation, including pending or contemplated administrative actions pursuant to Texas Government Code ANN 551.071, parentheses A, parentheses 1, and to consult with the Commissioner regarding personnel matters pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074. So it is now